Well, hey there. It's your old pal Keith from... And I'm a big spaz. I'm being attacked by my own little micro composition. Hey there. It's your old pal Keith from wavetables.lol. That's wavetables.lol, home of KRC Mathwaves, my gigantic, enormous even, collection of wavetables, single-cycle waveforms, and even some samples for all sorts of modern synthesizers, including our friend KRC Mathwaves that's playing these cool synthetic drums, like syn-toms, if you will. A few things to talk about today. So number one, I want to get to finally, because I didn't in my last video, get to the new split wavetables in KRC Mathwaves. Also, it is Pride Month, it's June, and a perfectly apropos sample library came out from Soundpaint called Disco Strings, which is actually fantastic, I think, and well worth the mere $99 for it. I've got a viewer question or two I'm going to get to. And then there's also, in Airwaves Consolidated, a new and very strange plugin that you probably heard if you saw my previous video that was just a little music video thing, called CrunchCoat. It's a very interesting reverb that uses undersampling. So, with that being said, let's get into it. Let's start with the split wavetables in KRC Mathwaves. Now, KRC Mathwaves is my gigantic collection of more than 150,000 wavetables and single cycle waveforms, as I say, for all sorts of modern synthesizers. Let's get Modwave a little bigger here. And the split wavetables are kind of going into territory that I've explored, more recently with like basic synthesis waveforms and what are some of the ways we could combine them, and exploring resonances and what happens when you bunch a waveform up into a smaller space of samples and things like that. And these had their origin in a funny thought. Maybe it was a shower thought, or maybe it was a going to sleep thought. But I was like, okay, let's consider the sine wave, right? So we've got a sine wave here. What if I had a digital knife and I cut it, right? So that I've got the downward going component and the upward going component. And what if over the course of a wavetable, I split them apart and just inserted silence in there, right? So that the downward portion, the upward portion are being pushed into these kind of resonant-y things. Now, inserting silence into a basic synthesizer waveform was not something that I explored with the basic mix wavetables that I did before. And you might already be ahead of me about what's going on here, because when I went to actually compute these, I discovered something funny about them, because phase is funny. So let's hear what this sounds like. This is the wrong patch. I gotta tell you, Bitwig's beta versions are like a little whack right now. They're not loading patches right. There we go. That is what splitting a sine wave up sounds like. And now, as I took this concept and went to implement it in code, I realized that an easier way to think about this than we're like cutting the waveform and independently computing the upward and downward going components is to flip the phase a little bit. And you'll see that what we're actually doing is we're sort of squeezing the waveform and inserting silence on the other sides of it. So there you go. Phase is a funny thing. And of course, it's easy to forget about that. Like I could have thought of like, oh, I think I know exactly what this would sound like. But I had to do the experiment first. So now this is not a very big addition in KRC Mathwaves terms to KRC Mathwaves. It's about 729 wavetables. Again, they're provided as KRG MW bundles. They're provided as wave format for synths like Serum and Vital. They're also in .wt format for Bitwig, and Surge XT. And then there's 16-bit versions available for your Eurorack wavetable oscillators. Anyway, all of the formats that you can think of, and if there's one I haven't thought of that you need support for, you can ping me. So there's 729 of these guys, and if you're in KRC Mathwaves inside of ModWave, these will import as a couple of new collections. If you got the Wave versions, they'll be folderized in a slightly different way. But they will be in ModWave under KRC Split 1 and KRC Split 2. Let's take a quick look at Split 1. Split 1 are these very simple versions. So we saw the split sine. I did the same thing with a square wave. And so this waveform looks like this. Why are we looking at that? I don't know why. I don't know why we're looking at the mod lines. They just have a very interesting sound, right? Although it is not insanely different, and they do go very narrow. So they'll almost disappear at the very end. So that they'll almost disappear at the end. These are not too different from the basic mix wavetables. So I didn't go too crazy with these, but one really interesting thing you can do with this, let's just take a look at a couple of presets. You know, we could modulate these things in the other direction, like going from the very resonant part, and I could turn my phase around here so you can see a little more naturally what this waveform looks like. I did these in a couple different flavors so that you could modulate between them using ModWave's wavetable A-B mode. So in wavetable A, we've got like the split sine 2 waveform loaded, and then in B, we've got a split pulse wave. You know, what's the difference between a split pulse and a split square wave? It's just I kind of picked an arbitrary duty cycle for my pulse and then cut it apart and did this same transition, right, where it just gets smaller and smaller over the course of the wavetable. So there's two cycles of like different pulses here. But what you can do once you have that is you could modulate the wavetable A-B mix, right? Here I'm doing it with the filter envelope over here. And so you can get completely different sounds. All right. And so let's see, what other little examples do we have here of what we did with this? Oh, this is using ModWave's stretch parameter to like morph kind of the shape of the wavetable, and you see we're sort of squeezing these sides. So there's a little bit of like a PWM effect that's happening there, but it's happening on a sine wave. This is interesting. Now, one thing that's super interesting about these is that, you know, we haven't engaged the filter at all. And so you can hear, right, that we're going from this pure, kind of purish sine wave sound, right, to a more resonant tone with more harmonics, but without using the filter. Those harmonics are being caused by this change of the shape of the upward going and downward going parts of the wavetable. So those are kind of here's another example that uses the A-B mode. One thing you can do is you can, you know, load different A-B wavetables in here, and by adjusting this A-B balance, you can create different waveforms that have interesting shapes and that are not represented in anywhere else in the rest of the KRC Mathwaves collection. Like this one, there are some waveforms that are sort of like this, but were created with completely different techniques. So these are good for, you know, basic synthesis kinds of stuff, right? You know, they can be rich harmonically. And so they're good for filtering, right? And we can enhance the resonance that's sort of built into the waveform or wavetable by turning up a resonance in our filter. And And these will be pretty interesting. Now, so there's, as I mentioned, there's there's a small collection called Split One, and Split One covers this just basic concept of, let me just go filter this real quick. Split One. So, you know, of splitting a pulse, splitting a saw, splitting a sine, splitting a square, splitting a triangle. I've taken some liberties with these waveforms because, you know, some, like the splitting a triangle would be a little bit kind of boring. So I'd use kind of a double cycle triangle wave here and split it. Same thing with the saw. But you get the basic idea. Now, since I discovered that these were sort of similar sounding to basic mix wavetables, I did some different stuff in the collection called Split 2, which is another 700 wavetables or so. And what I did, let's listen to this guy. Super interesting, right? And you see that I'm modulating the position here with an LFO, just very gently. But we could go more radical if we wanted to. And so that is creating a sound it's not unlike PWM, but you see the wave shape is changing pretty radically. You know, from a typical like square or pulse wave. So in the second set of these, where is there a? Do I have any that are like Split 2? Anyway, let's go and just grab one of those. So there's a second collection called Split 2. Like I say, there's about 700 wavetables in here, where what I did is I applied different techniques to these. So like this one is a split of a square that inserts a saw inside of it, right? And we're not really hearing that very well because we've got our odd only modifier on. Let's go change that. So these would only be square-like. There we go. So I did some kind of different things with some of these wavetables. So for example, we did some wave shaping. So the ones that have underscore WS in their file names mean that it's applying wave shaping. And it's kind of an exponential wave shaping, so straight lines are going to become more curvy. And you can see that in waveforms like this one, right? Where we've got this it's not exactly a triangle wave, it's a little bit roundy, and we increase or decrease that amount of wave shaping as we move up and down the wavetable to get different kinds of effects. And then there's also ones that have wave folding in them. So WS means it has wave shaping in it. If it has fold in it, that means there's some wave folding, and there's two different versions of the wave folding. I think I did a couple different parameters where I went from a wave folding value of 1 to 10 over the course of the waveform, also with wave shaping going on. And then I did a whole bunch of kind of unusual waveforms in these, like the polygonal waveforms that I'm so fond of. So you can hear in this wavetable, it has that kind of bell-like timbre at the very bottom, but it gets wave-shaped and wave-folded, and it gets split across the wavetable. And that leads to some very interesting timbres. These are sort of hybrid analog and digital in a way, right? And they have very strange resonances to them because of the complexity of the waveform that's being inserted. So those are super cool, and I hope you enjoy them. I don't really have a whole lot to demo with these, except it's a whole new region of wave space for you to explore. And with that, we'll move on to some other topics. So, Soundpaint Disco Strings. A couple days ago, developer, sampling library producer Soundpaint, run by Trolls Folman, whose last name I might be butchering. Anyway, Trolls is a cool guy. Soundpaint dropped an awesome new string library called Disco Strings. And these are string samples that you might also call studio strings. It's the sound of, I think it's 16 violins recorded in a fairly dry studio, doing all of the disco tropes. Orchestral string libraries are like not actually, super suitable in a lot of cases for, funk or disco or pop music production, because, there's a completely different, library of idioms in, pop string writing. And like, I'm not any sort of, really skilled composer, but I am a careful sound listener. And, the types of bowing and the types of legatos and things like that you might use in an orchestral mock-up or a film score are distinctly different from the types of things that you might do if you wanted, to do a banging kind of disco track. Now, as you heard in the intro tune, I used these to kind of quickly mock up a little, like, it sounds like a 70s cop show soundtrack theme, maybe something that you'd hear when you come back from commercial or something like that. And these have a super legit sound. They're just super happy and fun and very playable, and like just super interesting. Let's just kind of run through. I've soloed the string sounds that I used in the intro track, and you can see that they're actually quite simple. So the types of things you get in here, and this is not a comprehensive list of them. I mean, there are 3 different mics, Royer, Neumann, and I think it's an AKG. Yeah. And there's just all sorts of different articulations, as I call them, in sample library land, that let you do very realistic pop string writing. So let's just kind of run through and hear a few of the things that I used. So 2 different things here. So there's these really great octave runs. So those are awesome, right? They come in like major and minor and just all sorts of different variations. They are key switchable. If you're not familiar with Soundpaint is Soundpaint's answer to Kontakt. So Trolls has another company. I'm not sure if he's still releasing stuff under the label called 8DO, but 8DO had these like really a bunch of awesome libraries, and I've got quite a few of them for Kontakt. And then a couple years ago, they started releasing their sample libraries with this Soundpaint application. And so Soundpaint is kind of like a more modern version of Kontakt. I guess I'll get to like how it's more modern maybe as we talk through it. But it's pretty easy to get to grips with. It actually is great sounding. You can create your own projects, and you can map samples and stuff like that. Although Soundpaint is probably mostly for consuming Soundpaint's own sample libraries. But it's very cool, and I actually hadn't used it yet. I have a bunch, as I was saying, of the 8DO libraries in Kontakt format, but Kontakt's a little clunky, it's a little slow to load, and like all this kind of stuff, and it's not incredibly modern in terms of the workflow that it puts you into. And I do find that Soundpaint, just in my short time working with it, kind of solves a lot of those problems, and it has some pretty interesting features. It's free, so not Disco Strings, but Soundpaint is free, and they actually have a free deep sampled piano that sounds pretty good that you can get. So like, go to Soundpaint and just get this, even if you're not interested in Disco Strings. Now, another thing we heard right after, let's just replay that. Right after the run, there's this little figure. And so these are a really cool articulation that, let's see, let's get it open. Click to open. Let's shut this other one. This is really cool, called Disco Shorts. So these are short strings, right, that have a very interesting property to them. They're actually super deep sampled, and they go from like very, very short bow strokes to, you know, almost more of a marcato, but like at 127 different layers. And so they're longer, like the harder that they're hit. So they can go from like, and they just nail that. That kind of that kind of theme from Shaft sound. So they're just really cool, very neat, and they come in two flavors. So there's this one called Drama and then one called Sweet, that sort of both have different characters. And just like it was that made me want to do kind of a theme from Shaft ripoff. And then we go into these little phrases. And these are super interesting articulations. These are called ornaments. And they have like multiple notes, right? So you can hear we get like the two bow strokes. Very cool, and again, like key switchable. Wild. I mean, how can you not love that? I think they're just super great. Let's see. And then, this is the thing that I think really sells the library for me, is it has 3 different versions, again, like round robin and completely, you know, all the velocity layers sampled, of Disco Falls, right? So, you know, fall is sometimes called a pull in Stringland, but it's that swooping downward thing that you hear so much in disco. That do. And I totally messed up my composition here because I hit those key switches. So, you know, we're just going to listen to it, screw it up, okay? So there's let's see, what is this fall? So I think this is the slower one. Yeah, oh, okay. So they come in 3 speeds. Where are they? So there's fast, slower, and super fast. So this is the Disco Falls fast with the Neumann microphone. Really great sounding thing. You can play them in chords if you want. I mean, it's just great. And because because you've got control over the times, like you can control the speed of things, you can just dial in. You could dial in exactly like what you need, but the defaults are like close enough for jazz, right? So that's the fast fall. And then toward the end here, I used this tremolo, or sorry, it's a trill. It's not a tremolo. I mislabeled it. There's another fall. So this one's the ultra fast, I think. Boy, I'm doing a really terrible walkthrough of this. I'm just excited about it. I love the way it sounds. I think you should go check it out. It's only 99 bucks. I bought it immediately. Okay, we are continuing on about the trills. All right. So as we get to the end of this, you know, I hope it's a good composition. I think it's okay. It's not bad for an amateur. we've got these, I had labeled it as trem because I think when I was originally programming this, I was using the tremolo, but then I was like, wait a minute, I really want a trill. So there are trills. And a trem. Here's the tremolo. Anyway, the trills are what I used here. And they come in like seconds and thirds and major and minor, I think. I'm not looking at the trills. Where are they? So yeah, so we got sustains, we got trills. So yeah, they're minor second, major second, minor third. Just you read the labels, Keith. Just read them. And then a tremolo. And by the way, you can customize your programs. You can make your own programs and just load whatever articulations you want. So you don't, if you're like me and you kind of like to put like separate articulations in different tracks because, that's just the way you like to work, you can work with it that way. I haven't customized these much yet. And why am I just dragging that around at random? So anyway, I just did this like simple build, right? Where we're just kind of like building up a little chord. And then that fast drop at the end. And then in context, okay, well, because I screwed up, a bunch of stuff by like playing with key switches, I'm reloading this project so we can hear it in its entirety again. This is the same track that I played in the introduction. And there's only 3 instruments. I mean, besides all those different Soundpaint articulations, there's only 3 instances of specific synths being used in this project. So one is Stylus RMX, which I know it's a little long in the tooth, but I still like it a lot, especially because you can do these kind of like aleatoric compositions with it. There can be like randomness, and so you can randomize a rhythm, but if you're also using a musical loop, you can kind of randomize that. And so there's a little flute riff in here that like every time I play through this, it's slightly different. It's doing that kind of theme from Shaft kind of flute that you hear in the middle sections. And then we've got, several instances of Soundpaint to do the disco strings. And then there's a couple of Mathwave programs I'm doing here. So one is this bass. And then there's a version of the bass that has fingered portamento. So that's in the intro part. And then let's see. There's one more. Oh yeah, the synth toms. So these guys, I think that's a super cool 70s, 80s sound, and it's a super simple program I cooked up in about like 2 minutes, just using the Mathwave default basic wavetable to kind of select something that's sort of triangle-like, and then there's a sample in the B layer, I guess, or the 2, sorry, oscillator 2, use the terms. There's a sample from my varieties of noise sample library that's part of KRC Mathwaves. It's like a little kind of free bonus that you get, where I did all these samples that are based on different types of noise. And so this is a looped noise called sand. And it has just a little more interesting timbre than typical white noise. And just by putting these together, and there's just an early reflections reverb on it. I mean, it almost sounds like sampled drums, right? And so we're just kind of swooping the pitch of the triangle wave, and we're also, even though it doesn't make a huge difference, we're also sweeping the pitch of the noise sample here, just to get a little variety over the course of the note. You can hear that the noise kind of pitches a little bit. Anyway, I thought that was really cool, and I was proud of myself. And I also felt like that was kind of what it was kind of the finishing touch on this track. So anyway, let's just listen to this short thing again. There's that flute. On tonight's episode, dial F for funk. Anyway, it's kind of interesting, right? How like a little bit of that string library goes a long way. I mean, it's not like there's a bajillion notes playing here or anything, but it just nails that sound. It's really cool. Um, I guess another couple things to talk about because I'd like to talk about this lately on my master bus here to get a sound that's a little bit more like a mastered production. I'm using Airwindows. Go get Airwindows at airwindows.com. Airwindows Consolidated is a plugin that's essentially like 400 different VST plugins across all sorts of different use cases. That sounds great. It's open source, but you can support the developer if you want to. I have actually subscribed to Chris from Airwindows Patreon at the $6.66 level because that's just the kind of person I am. Because I think there's a great deal of value in it. But, it's no harm, no foul if you just install it and use it occasionally and you're not required to pay for it, which I think is a really super interesting business model. Anyway, there's a fantastic tape emulation inside it. It's called 2Tape 6. And so we're just using that to get to kind of soften our sound a little bit, roll off the highs, and give us some cool bass with the head bump parameter, okay? And then I've got Ozone 11 vintage, what am I trying to say? He's trying to say limiter, but it's not it is vintage limiter. See, it's running the vintage leveler preset. That's what, and so this is kind of gluing everything together, right? Anyway, that's what is going on there. Soundpaint, when I say it's kind of more modern than Kontakt, if I were to have like all these articulations, and want to use them in their Kontakt-based libraries, I'd typically maybe have one instance of Kontakt, and then I would have all of the different sounds loaded into that and address them on separate MIDI channels. But the Soundpaint concept is more like just put the thing on a track. And it turns out that this is also more CPU efficient, right? Because I don't think any DAW can actually take a single track and like take advantage of multiple virtual CPUs, right? Your cores. And so doing things in this way is actually very CPU efficient. And so you could see, I don't know if you were watching, but like my meter, the CPU meter up here is never getting close to pegging maximum, right? It's just running just fine. So anyway, that's pretty cool. It's cool that Soundpaint is modern. And I still like Kontakt, but I don't know. Have the latest versions really added much? I'm not sure that they do. Okay, talky. Now, this is not like a complete overview or review. My review of Disco Strings is it's freaking fantastic. I think even if you have other orchestral string libraries, this is an interesting color to bring into it. I mean, if you want to make legit sounding disco tracks, you kind of need this. It's $99. I think it's well worth the money. It's huge. And Trolls from Soundpaint has a couple of great introductions to these. There'll be links in the description. There's always links in the description. And one of them, it does a demo that's kind of like this, where he performs these things in context and talks about them. And then there's another one that's where he just runs through all the different articulations and explains them. Both are fascinating. You can learn a lot. And one thing I actually really appreciated about the in context demo that he does is he talks about the history of disco and its cultural and social function, especially in LGBTQ plus culture in the 70s and disco club culture and stuff like that, which was, as he says, I couldn't say it better, all about being your colorful self. And so what I want you to know, friends, is that if you like this channel, like and subscribe. By the way, like and subscribe. We're at about 700 subscribers now, which is totally awesome. I'm so excited about that. But if you're watching this, and interested in the topics they talk about, well, we have something in common, right? And we're friends. That's why I say, hey, it's your old pal Keith, because I'm your pal, and I want you to know that I'm your pal, and I don't judge you, based on your ethnic background, your sexuality, your your ideas of gender, like whatever, where you're from, none of those things matter to me. I just want you to know that I like you for you. Okay? And so we say Happy Pride to all of our friends, all our pals out there, right? Okay. Now, that brings us to our last topic for today, which is Airwindows Consolidated, which I talked about a few minutes ago, has a new reverb in it called CrunchCoat. And CrunchCoat is super weird and interesting. They call it a cursed retro digital reverb, and it's definitely those things. So you check out, it's 2 videos ago. It's the most recent one that's in my Mathwaves channel. If you want to hear this in the full context of a track. But what we're listening to here is a Modwave patch. Let's just bring it up. It's my old friend Curve Magic 119, which I think is super interesting. But it's being made more interesting by this reverb called CrunchCoat. So it's a simple 2-layer patch. Sorry, 2 oscillator patch. What is wrong with my terminology today? It's like, it's okay to mispronounce things, but don't say that it's don't say it is what it isn't. Because also, Keith, this is a 1 oscillator patch. It's just this one wavetable. Oh, that reminds me. I talked about the wavetables a little bit. Okay. Now we've got the main reverb off in Modwave, and while there is, I believe there is a delay on this. Yeah, there's some chorus and delay on it, but there's no reverb, and the reverb is coming from CrunchCoat. So CrunchCoat is it's like an evolution of some of the other ambience reverbs that are in Airwaves Consolidated. So there's Clear Coat, and there's another coat somewhere. Anyway, it's probably, maybe it's under lo-fi. But CrunchCoat is under reverb. You'll find it here. And it's kind of an ambience reverb, but then what it does is it's got both a regeneration parameter and then this derez parameter that if we take it way down, it turns into that it's sort of like bit crushing, but it sounds like what they call shift register noise, right? Like in the way that the noise sounds were done in old Defender arcade game. And it's cool because in something like Bitwig, we can actually modulate that. You'll see that I've got a beat LFO here set to modulate derez, and so what this is doing is you can smoothly morph this parameter, and as it changes, you get this kind of sweet, like sort of bit crushing or resolution crushing kind of effect, but also a pitch change. So is it a chorus? Is it a reverb? And it has lots of different settings that you can select from different types of rooms. And it can just be pushed in these really wild directions. And as derez goes down, the space gets bigger, but then this bit crushing effect comes in like much stronger. Now this might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's super cool. And it might sound fun not just on synths, but on acoustic instruments as well. And so in context, I'm going to reload this. In context, it sounds something like this.
Mathematics. We will consider one complete cycle of the wave. Mathematics.
And there it is.
Energy radiates outwards in all directions.
And you can see how the
waveform. Maximum amplitude.
And we're going to stop that because I've got too much going on. There's a whole bunch of like, oh boy, there's a whole bunch of like the mastering chain on this particular version, and so it was really hogging my CPU there. One other kind of cool thing, anyway, check that out. Go get Airwaves Consolidated. Check out CrunchCoat. I think it's really cool and weird. And then there's more useful stuff in there as well. I guess maybe more normal. One thing I did want to point out, because I did mention in a previous video that Airwindows has these kind of console emulations. They're not really branded, but they're implementations of different kinds of consoles. And I did not explain, because I hadn't really learned it yet, that there are two components for these console emulations. There's the channel console. So you put the channel console on a given track, right? So it's on this this mod wave track here. And then on your master bus, you put the bus version of that. So wait, that's to tape. Here we go. Console LA bus. So I was using console LA on each of my channels, and then console LA bus on the master bus. And apparently the way these things work is you put the channel version on each of your channels, and then on your master bus, you put the bus version. And so kind of what happens, I guess, the channel one does a certain kind of encoding, and then the bus one kind of decodes that and gives you the sound of the console. This does introduce some delay, so it's not really useful in a context where you're still recording, but it's useful in a context where you're mixing or mastering or something like that. Anyway, I think those are really cool. Yeah, go to airwindows.com and watch Chris's Airwaves channel. Super interesting stuff. And again, it's like, nominally free. So like, why not? So anyway, that's it for today. Happy Pride. Go have fun. Go get KRC Mathwaves. Go check out Disco Strings. Go get Airwaves Consolidated because it's completely free. And I will talk to you later. Ta-ta.